Happy Victory Monday, Browns fans. This is the first Monday in a long time where Browns fans have been actually actively going online looking for content because, well, we haven't had a lot of good Mondays over the last 6-7 weeks of the season. But I want to recap a little bit of what we saw yesterday, talk about what Jameis Winston's play means for Deshaun Watson's future with the Browns, and I've got some really good news to get to for the back half of today's episode. But if you love having Victory Monday, if you actually enjoy going to work or going to school the next Monday, going to the lunch table, going to the water cooler, and not getting shit talked from your Ravens or Steelers friends, hit that thumbs up button. Let's get 500 likes for number 5, Jameis Winston, who led the Browns to an awesome win on Sunday. And with that, let's talk about Jameis because we got the Jameis experience. I mean, 334 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. The only thing we were really missing from a full Jameis Winston experience was 3 interceptions, which we'll talk about in a little bit here because the Ravens, not kind of, but big time, let the Browns off the hook with some really bad drop picks. But Jameis was in full effect. I mean, he was aggressive with the football. He was pushing it down the field. But he also showed that he's not just some, bad backup like he is, or at least on Sunday was playing, way better than I expected. I'll come out and say that right now. I know I talked about before Deshaun Watson got injured and everyone calling for Jameis to come in. I was like, listen, there's so many issues with the offensive line, the receivers, the running backs. I don't think inserting Jameis is going to dramatically change things. Not only did the Browns get to 20 points for the first time this year, they nearly got to 30 points. So yeah, hand up, Jameis was way better than I thought he would be. But the Ravens also helped a lot. There were some good plays from Jameis Winston, of course, right? You go back to the film a little bit here as I rewatched the game this morning. You had this touchdown pass to Cedric Tillman to take the lead in the last minute of the game. That was an awesome throw right on the money. Then you've got a different type of throw here. This is earlier in the game, and you're seeing great timing from Jameis, right? Look at Elijah Moore. When this ball is released, Elijah Moore is still breaking out of his route. He's completing the comeback on it, and Winston layers this ball perfectly between 2 defenders for a nice big gain. But then you've got the Jameis that, we somewhat did see on Sunday. The Ravens just let the Browns off the hook. This is in the first quarter. This is down in the red zone, and you've got Eddie Jackson dropping an easy interception. This was the first of 3 drops. How about later on where you've got Kyle Hamilton in the last minute of the game with the ball in his hands to probably seal the game? The Browns had 3 timeouts. Best case scenario, they stop Baltimore and they get the ball back with no timeouts and give or take 35 seconds or change. Or how about earlier in the game where Eddie Jackson, who by the way might be tried in Baltimore for espionage because he dropped 2 picks, and Cedric Tillman literally ran over him en route to the end zone for his first touchdown of the day. So yeah, Jameis was in full effect. The difference was the Ravens DBs didn't make the plays. And maybe that's just a couple of cobwebs being shaken off by Jameis in his first start in a long time, going back to 2022. And he'll clean up some of those throws and won't put the Browns in a spot where they could be, unfortunately, on the wrong end of some really bad turnovers. Or maybe that's just what we're going to see for the rest of the year, and it'll come down to whether or not the opposing team makes the plays or not. But yeah, don't get me wrong. Jameis was very exciting. He was super fun to watch, and the stats are awesome, and the win was terrific. But there is a mild level of concern that Jameis threw 3 really bad passes that were super easy to get picked off. And the Ravens DBs decided, you know what, we're going to do everything in our power to make sure Winston looks as good as possible, to make Deshaun look as bad as possible. So we'll drop a couple of these passes. But hey, that's the Jameis experience for you. I asked for it. I said I want to be entertained. We were definitely entertained. But the key difference I noticed this week when rewatching the game and watching it live was the execution. The offensive line was so much better. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit as well. The running game actually showed some life. The receivers were catching passes. Elijah Moore was hauling in one-handed grabs. We did not get that for the first 7 weeks of the year. And then Jameis himself. He was on time. He was accurate for the most part, minus those 3 passes. But hey, that's the NFL for you. Make the plays or don't, right? It's a make or miss league. But he was on time, on target, and he was showing a lot of really good zip on his balls as well. So execution across the board was way better than any other game we had seen this year. And with Ken Dorsey calling plays, I know some people thought we'd see a dramatic shift. I don't think the play calling was very different than from Kevin Stefanski's play calling. Maybe a little bit more pass heavy than Stefanski, but all in all, I just think we saw better execution than we had seen in previous weeks. From the quarterback, from the running backs, the receivers, the offensive line. I think that's the biggest difference, not any of the play calling. But we know Jameis loves to eat a W. I think the first thing he tweeted out after the game was a link to eating a W t-shirt, which we might have to get and give away during our watch party this Sunday against the Chargers. So now that I think about that, we definitely have to do that. So drop a W in the chat for Jameis Winston getting the W. Now, let's talk about Deshaun Watson. What does Jameis going out there, balling out, putting up 300 yards and 3 touchdowns in a win, joining Baker Mayfield as the only 2 quarterbacks to accomplish that for the Browns in the last 15 years mean for the guy that's sandwiched in between those 2 QBs? Number 4. Well, let's start with going back in time for a moment. And you go back to last year with Flacco coming off the couch. And, I mean, instantly you can just look at the numbers here and see a couple of notable differences between Watson and Flacco. A little bit more pass happy under Joe Flacco than Deshaun Watson, and similar to Winston. But, I mean, look at the stats, too. I mean, in Flacco's first start, he throws for more yards than Watson did in his last 2 starts before he got injured against the Ravens. You've got 5 touchdowns in 2 games compared to 3. But overall, I think we can just agree. The eye level told us the Browns' offense was better and more exciting under Joe Flacco last year than Deshaun Watson in a lot of ways. But that was maybe just a one-off. And I think that's what the coaching staff kind of chalked it up to when they didn't bring Flacco back. Now we have a pattern where it's 2 straight seasons of a backup quarterback coming in and outshining the $230 million quarterback. Maybe the Browns lied to themselves a little bit and chalked up Flacco's incredible play to a little fluky, and that's why they didn't want to bring him back. Plus, I believe there is a lot of truth to Andrew Berry and company just didn't want to have an awkward situation of the fans chanting for Flacco if things went south with Watson or just weren't going great early on. So they avoided that altogether by bringing in Winston. The issue is they signed the most likable backup quarterback when the whole goal was we don't want to have fans chanting for the backup. They should have signed Tim Boyle then. Then no one would have chanted for Boyle for backup. But that was their big issue was they saw a potential problem of if we bring back Flacco and things are going south with Watson, they're going to want Flacco again. Okay, we can't bring back Joe. Let's sign a different backup. Who's the only backup that the fans would chant for? Jameis Winston. So, with that being said, if Winston continues to play well for the rest of the season, or at least just play better, and that's not very hard to do, than the way Watson played for the first 7 weeks, Andrew Berry will have no excuse not to bring back Jameis. He didn't really have an excuse to not bring back Flacco after last year, but somehow he kind of got off the hook for it, mostly because he signed a likable quarterback in Jameis. There's no more likable backup in the NFL than Jameis Winston. So if Andrew Berry does not bring back Winston after this season, and Winston plays well the rest of the year, I would love to hear what Andrew Berry's explanation is for that. Because he got away with it last year. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, can't be fooled again. They cannot let Winston walk out the door just to protect Watson's ego or just to gift wrap him the QB1 spot after letting the last backup who played very well walk out the door, and that looked like a big dumb mistake. We have some good news to get to, though, in just a moment, so don't go anywhere. But I do want to give a quick shout-out to our sponsor today, which is Game Time. Game Time has an awesome feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. You see, Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Now, I know that a couple of weeks ago, you probably weren't thinking you want to go to a Browns game. But who wants to see the Browns beat the Chargers on Sunday? So if you want to be there in person, boots on the ground, report back to me, download the Game Time app right now, and take the guesswork out of buying tickets. When you download the app, create an account and use code Chat Sports for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHAT Sports for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. So, some good news to get to here. For one, JOK tweeted out all is well, and then something that I cannot pronounce. But all is well for Jeremiah Usu-Koromoa, who was carted off in a very scary scene after taking a hit from Derrick Henry. They removed his face mask. It was a neck injury. He had movement in all extremities. He did get taken to the hospital, but very encouraging to see. My suspicion is we probably won't see JOK this Sunday because, especially with the Browns having a bye the next week, might as well give him 2 weeks to rest up before they come back and play the Saints on the road. So, JOK, get well soon, man. We love and we miss you. Some other notes and some other good news, though. Cedric Tillman, he's arrived. I was very close to giving up on Ced because he really had not come through a season and a half into his young career. But Tillman put together by far the best game of his NFL career. 9 targets, 7 grabs, 99 yards, and 2 touchdowns. His first touchdown was his career first touchdown, and then he tacked on a second one for the game winner as well. Cedric Tillman was another draft pick in the 3rd round that looked like Andrew Berry missed on from the wide receiver standpoint after missing on Anthony Schwartz and David Bell. This would be a huge boost to the Browns going into the offseason, even if they don't start stacking on more wins after this one. To have a good head start on replacing Amari Cooper, I mean, if Tillman plays well the rest of the year, Jerry Jeudy's under contract. Elijah Moore could go either way in terms of his return or not. But getting Tillman going right now, that could alleviate a ton of stress and pressure for the Browns to go out and get a big-name receiver if they feel like, hey, between Tillman and Jeudy and Moore coming back or maybe a second-round draft pick, we're in a pretty good spot at that receiver position. Next thing I noticed from watching the game over again, the offensive line was vastly better. There's a couple reasons why. One, maybe, you could believe this, they were just blocking and playing harder for Jameis Winston. Or maybe it's because they got really healthy. I mean, that's probably more of the case here. Wyatt Teller had some bad penalties, but overall, you got Posick and Teller back. Conklin's just getting better and better by the week. Joel Petonio is old consistent back there. He's always going to be reliable. And then how about DeJuan Jones? PFF was not very kind to DeJuan Jones, but overall, I thought Jones played the best football of his 2024 season. He was very consistent at left tackle up until he let up a sack fumble with a rusher going, Kyle Hamilton, right by him untouched. But outside of that bad play, and then he had a false start as well at a bad time. But still, overall, I think we can agree. DeJuan Jones at left tackle, it gave us some hope that he could be your permanent left tackle and replace Jed Wills altogether, who is a free agent after this season. And you could proceed with Jones and Conklin at tackle. And then when the draft gets here, depending on where the Browns pick, they may not feel like they have to go offensive tackle. If they like another player at a different position more, who's higher up on their big board, that could free them from feeling the need to take a position of need like tackle and going out and getting the elusive and so desired best player available. So the offensive line, much, much better on Sunday. And then finally, Nick Chubb is heating up. I mean, we expected this to be the case here as he gets, his feet under him, his legs back, and gets more into the NFL speed and swing of things. But you look at what he did week 7 in his first game against the Bengals versus week 8. First thing that jumps out to me is the snaps. For starters, he played all 4 quarters, played 12 more snaps, 5 more carries. He averaged over a yard more per carry. So I expect Nick Chubb just to get better and better as the season goes on, as he gets his feet back beneath him and he gets back into the NFL speed and swing of things. But the overall big arching takeaway from their win against the Ravens, this is what we expected the Browns to look like. It just took 8 weeks. And you can make a fair argument that if they had started Jameis far earlier, instead of being 2-6 right now, they could be 3-5. They could be 4-4. And then they look at their upcoming schedule as the Browns unfortunately started the year off 2-6, like I said. But they go into week 9 against the Chargers. Chargers coming off a nice win home against the Saints. Then the bye. I mean, I already had 2 people DM me right after the game ended going, I'm thinking playoffs. If you're thinking playoffs, I'll tell you this. They can only lose maximum 2 more games. And I don't want to start counting out the wins, but home against the Chargers. I think the Chargers are a good team, so it's not going to be a gimme by any stretch, but at home, that could help. Saints look bad. They might get healthy, though, by week 11. Steelers, I'm still not impressed by. The Broncos with a rookie quarterback, you never know with Jim Schwartz. Steelers, again, I'm not impressed by. Chiefs at home, I'm not too impressed by the Chiefs despite their record. They kind of reminds me of the 2020 Steelers? Yeah. Week 16, Bengals, that won't be easy on the road. Dolphins, that's so far away, who knows? But they lost at home against the Cardinals, and the Browns just beat the Ravens. So, yeah, why not run the table? Why not go all the way? So, do you still have playoff hopes after this win? I'm not going to give up entirely, but I will say this. I'm not going to let this win trick me into thinking the Browns should not trade away a couple more players. I think they should still trade away Cedric Smith because I don't think this team is going to be a playoff winning team this year. I know, I'm the bad guy. I'll say it out loud. And I think they should get a draft pick for a 30-plus-year-old player at a premium position at the NFL trade deadline. All right, that's going to do it for us on today's episode. Follow us, by the way, on Instagram, Browns Report IG. I post content over there, trying to grow our Instagram following. So if you have an Instagram account, I'd really appreciate it if you followed us, Browns Report IG.